knew this was coming at some point or later. It's the Villains Talk Show and Podcast. Hello. Everybody out there in cyberspace and in all the spaces. Welcome. Welcome. Hello and welcome to the Villains Talk Show and Podcast. I am C4, the only host here right now. And yeah, if you're joining us live, it's nice to see you. I know we are literally an hour late. That's my bad. But we are also here, I guess. You know, everything's golden, everything's gravy. So last week we didn't have a show. You may notice the lap in either podcasts if you're watching on podcasts, or if you're watching live. We put out a message. I was extremely sick last week, so we canceled the show because my computer is the central computing unit that controls all of the things. And since I was inoperable, I was not able to, do the actual, technical side of it. So we weren't able to do it last week. And then this week, I went to the hockey game, and I was like, hey, so this is the topic for today. And then and then I got a bunch of messages from the other co-hosts saying I'm tired, I'm working late. So all respect to them. Insane Inc.'s got a new job. It's got him working late. Got him working a lot too. So he's just going home and taking a rest. Sarah the Viking is, oh man, it's junior high school math time, so it's just always hell for her. Greasy Boys also same new job. However, I would be remiss to say that we might have a surprise visit from the elusive gentleman himself. I only say that not because I know if he's coming on, but because I actually have no idea what his schedule is now. He's been so screwed around with his work. Four of us are cooks. Everyone except Sarah's a cook in some aspect. So anyone out there who lives the cook life knows that, after a while it's hell. You can never pick your actual days off. I'm the boss, and my days off still don't exactly match up some days. Oh, good. My internet's deciding to be a pain. Ah, fantastic. So if you're listening on the podcast, or if you're watching live, holy crap, I have people watching live. I'm sorry. I know I'm by myself. It's weird. Okay, let's pull the pony out of the shed right away. I know I have no co-host here, so it's going to be an awkward experience for both of us, those listening and me. I honestly, if we go back to the 2 years ago, it's been since I started this with my friends. I told them I did not think I would be able to coherently talk by myself towards a camera for over 30 minutes. So we're going to try that. I've had some time, so we have two topics today. I'm going to be talking about the two things I know quite a bit about. Theory, cults. I know quite a bit about cults. I know quite a lot about cults, actually. And then maybe just to pad the time, maybe throwing a bit of talk about I don't know, like political cults, because today's cult of personality. I'm going to be talking to you about cults of personality. Now, the first thing you notice is I don't have Insaniac to talk over me. I don't have the Greasy Boy to throw in random funny things, and I also don't have I also don't have the beautiful lyrical vocal notes of Sarah Vike. So we're going to go across this venture together, and I'm going to hold your hand, and it's going to be awkward, but it will be fun. That pause was supposed to happen. Anyway, so I might as well dive in. Cult of personality. I'm sure most people are gonna sit out there and think to themselves, okay, so when he thinks cult of personality, the first thing I think of is if you're Canadian, Trudeau. If you're American, Trump. And you wouldn't be far off. But that's actually not a cult. It's not a cult of personality as what it is when you look at someone like Trump or Trudeau. We're gonna work with Trump here. Not because I have anything for or against him. I could give a fuck. I'm Canadian. But because it's the easiest to explain, most people seem to be able to order him in their minds a lot better. So when it comes to Trump, and it comes to looking at a cult of personality, most people will assume that he has a cult of personality. His name's everywhere. Outside of the narcissism. Okay, let's start there. Outside of the narcissism, you have people that automatically think he's successful. People will automatically think he's a businessman. There are people out there who you mention Trump, and they start attributing a bunch of stuff that actually has no basis in fact, and start. Oh man, I keep yawning. Excuse me. They keep attributing it to him. Now, that you could argue is a kind of cult of personality, but in reality all that is propaganda. That's not a cult. That's good media. That's being able to basically look at your neighbor and tell them that this pile of sand you have in your hand is actually an apple and convince them. And then they'll go tell their neighbor, and so on and so forth. And so what that actually is just it's not deception either. I would say that's more just that's a good word. There's an actual word for it. I need to think of it, or else people will start banging me on the head. But there's an actual word for it. But it's essentially, yeah. It's not a cult of personality. It's simply an air of understanding, an air of understanding you create around yourself. I think that's the most correct term I could think of. If I think of a better one, I'll come back to it. But no, where you get a cult of personality, what you have to really break down what that means as a sentence, because everyone knows what a cult is. A cult is a group of people that worship and or believe in and or put a segregated society that keeps themselves small and are seen to have radical beliefs towards blah blah blah, a personality. So what I would argue the cult of personality would be almost easier to say like a famous actor. I'm trying to think of a good one. Someone who lives their life. Perfect one. Tom fucking Cruise. So you want to talk about cult of personality? The definition, at least as the definition that has been told by me. I should really back up. Hold on. Just so we're clear. Cult of personality was first coined by, just let me look it up real quick. I believe it was Durkheim. Blah, 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 blah. You post in the things because I do my research while I'm on the show. Normally I have friends to help me and pass the time. I'm sorry if my voice is horrible. You can just I'll just keep talking. It's not like anything else I can do. Just stand here and do nothing. Cult of personality. Blah 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 blah. First coined by. Just give me. I want to make sure that my expertise is correct and I'm not an idiot. Although that's kind of impossible. I'm pretty dumb sometimes. First coined by. Oh, hey, interesting. It was first coined, just so everyone out there can come up with me. It was first coined by historian Jan Plamper. Wrote modern day personal occults display in 5 characteristics and blah 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 blah. And we'll get into that later. But yeah, sorry. Jan Plamper. Not even close. I wasn't even right. Please don't ever quote me without true facts. But yeah, cult of personality, what it is, it's the idea of it's the idea of being seen as a certain way in life. Tom Cruise, before people really had an idea of what his actual personal life was, people considered him to have the Hollywood, gauche lifestyle. Living large, not really caring about people, taking names, slapping babies, jumping on Oprah's couch, saying how much he loves that woman that he actually locked inside his house and just kind of kept there for a while. Yeah, we're not. But but what I'm trying to get at is that long diatribe was, or that long side point was, is a cult of personality is essentially a fake you, a you that you garnish, to put towards the populace, and for good or for ill. The one of the greatest modern cults of personality I can think of, that always just strikes me right away, is Whoopi Goldberg. I mean, how many people actually know her name? How many of you out there listening actually know that she has a real name, and that her entire, her history, her lineage is all just made up? She made it all up for Hollywood. And it's not that, in one sense, personally, I've never really cared about the actual personal lives of famous people. I mean, and for that reason, you have to go so far that you have to create an entire new person that you're going to be just so you can be an actor, to keep your personal life separate. That's indicative of humanity and how shitty we are. Yeah. Take a second to think about that. We are such shitty people that there are famous people, because they're so scared for their lives, they have to make up entire fake versions of themselves. Essentially be an actor 24/7. Pretend to be someone else all the time so that we don't end up at their house, because humans are shit. Man, this podcast is getting off to a great start without my co-host. Jesus. See, this is why I need other people around me. I feel like I'm listening to myself talk, and I'm like, God damn, C4. You are so evil, or you're so pessimistic. That's what it is. Not evil, just pessimistic. I'm so cynical. Cause you look at cults of personality that work outside of Whoopi, outside of Goldberg, because I like her. Every other example I can think of, Mao Zedong, Stalin, this super horrible guy named Hitler. There was also this other guy. I think his name was Coney. He's the most recent one. Oh, you know what? Let's move backwards. I got four big names there. I'm gonna start with the biggest cult of personality. Joseph Kony. How many of you non-millennials listening to this podcast right now or watching live have any idea who the fuck Kony is? No? No, I give you a second. Don't worry. Don't go. Don't worry. Just if you're listening on your phone, just go to Google right now. Just go KONY 2012. Yeah, you'll see this wonderful video if you do that. About these wonderful soldiers, these armed combatants, all of which are under the age of 15, and you will then watch this beautiful video about how they not just brutally kill and maim like adults, but like all the adults in Central Africa are scared of these children. And who do they bow to? Joseph Kony. And Joseph Kony was able to use the literal cult of personality around him. Like, I'm not even talking about before 2012. I'm just so we're clear what I'm about to talk about. I am just talking about 2012. Because there's a documentary comes out early 2012 about the child soldiers. And of course, it's, oh my God, child soldiers are so horrible. These poor kids, they don't deserve that. And it's true, you know, poor kids. They don't deserve to be fed heroin and fucking others, like, what is it, heroin and fucking crocodile and all those fucking really, like, crocodile. Look up crocodile. That shit's fucking from Russia and that shit fucks you. But they give it to the kids because it's addictive. And then they give them an AK and say, hey, go shoot that person. And I mean, like, what are you going to do? They're fucked up with the little 14-year-olds. I'm not surprised. But, like, so this documentary comes out about Joseph Kony. And before the man, and it talks about in the documentary too, like about how he spent so much time accruing this ideology about him that, you know, he's against America and, you know, he's fighting the government for freedom and join me for a true man's freedom and they're trying to break and blah blah blah. Like yeah, no, it sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? Anyway, this was back in 2012. This was back in like 2010, actually. This is when it was being filmed. Documentary comes out in 2012. Okay. Now, anyone who wasn't a young child during that time, so everyone basically just slightly younger than me and anyone older, remember, everywhere you go, Kony 2012. You'd almost swear it was an election year. And not just in America, like in Canada, in Europe, all across the Western world. It even bled into some developing countries. I remember seeing news out of India and Russia and like some Asian news outlets that talked about Kony 2012. Like, let's get Kony. This guy is literally a pox on not just the world, on Africa. This is a guy who goes out, rapes women, drugs kids, and then forces them to join his army and gives them guns and makes them brutalize other people and continues this cycle. There's no reason you couldn't. Like, how could you not get behind getting this guy? He's like he's the most villainous villain you could ever give. Okay, right now you got petitions, you got everyone, and then they don't get him. Then nothing happens. And I mean that. Nothing happens. You have the entire world spitting this rhetoric for a whole fucking year. And nothing happens. What does this bastard do? He waits. He goes into hiding. He's not stupid. He knows that there's definitely forces and military forces that could easily walk into. I believe he was in the southern part of Uganda, northern Rwanda, Democratic Republic of Congo, that Central African area, if I'm pretty sure. They could easily send in a task force and just fucking shoot him in the head, and he knows that. He's not dumb. What does he do? He waits a couple years. Plays low. Don't hear about any of those overt crazy attacks of like 100 children running into a village and murdering everyone because the children were the ones with the guns. We don't hear about those where we go out. No. And after about, I remember I was still in school, around 2015, 2016, right when I was getting ready to graduate. That's when I started hearing them again. That's when I started hearing about, now he's been saying that he beat the West. And he's basically almost, like, he was almost gone. They almost had him. They almost completely took away all his clout. But because they didn't commit, and it was just a bunch of banging on drums out here in the West, he turned that. Like, as much as I hate the bastard, he turned that around, and now he walks all around Central Africa, basically telling people, "Hey, I beat the West. Come join me. They can't touch me." And yeah, now his army's grown. It's bigger than it was, and it's still full of child soldiers, and he's still brutalizing them. He's still cutting off their fingers if they don't listen. He's still forcing them to do heroin. But like, because of our non-committal, it allowed him to ride that wave. And you look at the other three dictators I had named, Mao, Stalin, and Hitler. The only one like we've actually gone in and dealt with was Hitler. And look what happened with Stalin. Lived for another 20 years, murdered millions of Russians. And then for the next 40 years, it was a roller coaster in Soviet Union. You'd have some leaders of the Soviet Union who were actually good at their job, and then you'd have fucking... it starts with a K. I forget his names during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Oh, God. My political teacher's going to slap me. Khrushchev? No, that's not it. Don't quote me on that. The point is you have these slew of leaders that don't carry the same level of personality as Stalin. And so basically the economy was based on how strong the leader was. There was no reliance on the state. There was no reliance on the actual bureaucracy. There was no reliance on the people. It was just relied on this one powerful leader of a massive country. And like, just to further that point, you look at Mao and you look at China, and it's the same fucking story. Depending on the leader, you either know the leader's name because they were a strong Chinese leader. But that's a good question. How many Chinese presidents do you know? I'm asking you. Yeah, you listening. How many do you know? Other than Mao Zedong and the current one, Xi Jinping. Huh? Can you name one? No? Now why is that? Now I know your first answer is gonna be, oh well, the Chinese, they always take a back seat. They don't get involved in affairs like that, and that's not their place. Okay. But the president does. Why don't you know his name? And I can tell you why. It's an easy answer. Because the Chinese have purposely picked leaders that were not at all have any personality. Any kind of personality. Now, I don't mean that in a detriment. I mean they wanted to pick the most lame duck presidents because that had been the Chinese policy since the death of Mao was be the sleeping giant. Be the one that grows. The reason why the world all of a sudden out of nowhere now knows without a fact who the president of China is because he's trying to wake up the giant. Now, success I'm not going to talk about, blah blah blah, all that other fucking stuff around that whole idea I'm not going to touch. But that's why you know who Xi is. Because he's waking the giant. Because he's building that cult of personality. He's trying to walk with that big stick. The same way Mao did. And that's why you always hear about how he's framing himself like Mao. How he always takes pictures like he's standing like Mao. He's always compared to Mao. Because he's trying to build that cult of personality. However, the one thing Mao and Stalin and Hitler and fucking even more so back to fucking Coney have that Xi doesn't have is fucking charisma. That's the one thing Trump had oodles of. Just pounds of. He had no intelligence, nothing else. But if we were playing D&D, fucking Trump got rolled like 8 on all his stats and then he penciled in 40 in charisma. You can't stop it. But a real leader, a real person who's able to build a real cult of personality, strong in every aspect, but charisma is the killer. Think of the guy. Oh, I always forget his. God, I really should have a list of names in front of me, just so I can relate their names. But if I mention, everyone knows the story about the church down in the States with the crazy cult leader who made them drink the grape juice. And it's a real shame I don't know the name, not for his name, but for the people who actually suffered through that. But the person who did it, like, if you watch the videos of his sermons, because they're all online, like, you can take your time. And it's what it is. It's all it is charisma. The guy is able to essentially use his ability to understand how the human psyche breaks down. And I'm not just saying him. I wish I fucking knew his name. The guy, the super crazy cult leader, the actual like crazy cult leader. But I'm talking about all of them now, like all the political leaders I named, including him. It's not about understanding and using your charisma to persuade people. It's about it's also having a certain level of empathy, because you have to be able to read your audience. You have to be able to read your crowd, right? You have to be able to know what's going to invoke pain, what's going to invoke power, what's going to break down your audience more so that they are more malleable to being rebuilt in the way that you want, so that they're more easily susceptible to the words you're spewing. And the easiest ones, man, grief and anger. You look back at all those 4 examples I've listed. 5 examples now. 5 examples. Hitler, Mao, Stalin, Coney, and a fucking actual cult leader from the 1970s who murdered a bunch of people with grape juice. I will look up his name right now just so I can at least end that part of my fucking brain killing itself. I'm actually going to just write that in. Guy who killed people, grape juice. My God, my search history is going to be so great. Jim Jones. Jonestown Massacre. Jim Jones. Okay. I'm actually really glad I finished that. So Jim Jones. So the difference between that, or the similarity between those the three totalitarian leaders, the literal warlord Coney, and the religious figure Jim Jones, is they were able to look at anger and sadness and not just manipulate it, understand it. Understand it in a way that as a psychopath you shouldn't, but you have enough but you have enough charisma that you can curb it to your will. And I think that's where really cult of personalities really start to take steam and start to really get into what we'll call problematic territory. When you have someone who can not just understand what it is the masses is feeling, but use their own words to impress upon the masses their feelings and their emotions and their wants. This is really building into groupthink now, but I think that it really comes down to, especially when you're looking at personality, everyone always says you want someone who like can draw people and someone who can talk to people. I don't think that really matters. Stalin never really talked to people. Wasn't a big talker, wasn't a big bombastic guy. But when he died and they went into his personal abode, they only found 3 suits. They were all the exact same. He did not have a mansion. He lived in a small apartment with a shitty bed. And that, as well as the fact that he came across as Papa Stalin, even though he was murdering millions of people, even then, there are still Russians who suffered through Stalin, who still, like, stand by him. Because they considered him one of him, and it's what he created. Whether that's bullshit or not, it does not matter. Now, the reason I bring all this up, and I bring it up in that way, is because I want to now take a second here to take everyone out. Everyone want to take a step back, away from all the conflicts in the world. I'm sure you can pick out one. We're not going to talk about it. I'm not going to mention by name. I'm going to tell you to take a step back. Okay? And I want you to look at the leader of country A. We're going to call country A the A country. The country that is the most powerful country, we'll call it. Country A. And then we'll call it country B. The weaker country that is being invaded by country A. Okay? Insert countries there. I could give a fuck what countries you put in there. If country A has a charismatic leader but has no ability to create any kind of followers using a cult-like status, you're going to end up being motherfucking Obama and Bush all over again. And I say that in that Bush was hated by everyone in his country, but he still did what he had to. And he did it covertly, and people hated him for it. Or you do what Obama did, do the things overtly that makes everyone love you. Or no, you do things covertly that makes everyone love you, because when they find out, they love you. But overtly, you go send a bunch of fucking drones and bomb the shit out of everyone there. And no one says a damn thing. Like, you see what I mean there? You either hate the public, do things covertly, or please the public, do things publicly. Either way, you're celebrating the same fucking shit in the end. But if you have a cult of personality around you, going back to my country A, country B, your country A, you could Ronald Reagan it. Who fucking cares? As long as the people are behind you, fuck it. Who cares? What's gonna happen? World's gonna be pissed? Who cares? It's the fucking world. Go get fucked. I can tell you who's thinking just like that right now. I think you can too. And I just don't get it. Like I as a student of politics, I understand that. My peers understand that. My professors understand that. I like fuck even lower level members of the bureaucracy anywhere you go understand that. Politicians don't understand that. And that doesn't make any fucking sense to me. But yeah. That is, look at that. We're at 40 minutes. Bam. Well, 36. I don't care. I'm cutting it early. I'm doing it by myself. I've been talking for 36 minutes straight. By now, someone usually tells me to shut the fuck up, and no one has, so it's getting kind of weird. I would like to thank viewers in YouTube and in Twitch. Thank you for joining me live. If you want to join the show live, we do it 10 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, Mountain Standard Time, 9 o'clock Pacific, every Wednesday. Join us Fridays for the Two Shot Fridays. I would like to thank our Patreon, our only Patreon, and Adrian, Mr. For the Wheel. If you liked what you were listening to, please like, share, and subscribe, or follow us on Twitch, follow us on YouTube. You can catch older episodes anywhere you get your podcasts, on Apple, Google Play Music, Google Play Music app, Google Play Music at Google. What is it? Apple, iTunes, Google Play, Amazon Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and the list goes on. Otherwise, I'd like to thank Buzzsprout again for hosting us, and I think that's everything on the pander button for my pandering. Yeah, otherwise, I was C4. This was weird. Hopefully this doesn't happen again. Feedback, actually. You know what? I don't often ask for feedback. Give me feedback. Was this okay? Maybe, who knows? Maybe if I'm sick, we'll have, maybe, Sarah or Insane, or... Maybe we'll have Sarah do an entire episode by herself. And I mean that. Because... I'll be damned if I ever let fucking Greasy Boy or Insaniac take over this whole thing by themselves. They'll fucking run it to the goddamn ground. Anyway, I'm sorry you had nothing better to do. I'm glad you spent it with me. With me. Just me. I am C4, and I am one of the villains of the Villains Talk Show and Podcast, and I'll see you all either next Wednesday